Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine and The Shark. Today is our 169th episode, and we're talking about the 1990 Disney movie, The Rescuers Down Under. So, let's get things started.
Crikey, look over there. It's a Disney animated movie. One of the most hypnotic creatures known on the planet Earth. One gaze in its direction and 2 hours of my life are gone like that. I'ma touch it.
What? They're covering an underrated Disney sequel. We're taking this all the way to the Prime Minister. Aye, Mr. Prime Minister. Aye, mates. What's the good word?
Podcasting's a good job, mate. Challenging word in the doors. I guarantee you'll not go angry.
Yep. As you probably know, this movie's going to have a lot of Australian themes, which we'll get to right now. The Rescuers, like a lot of Disney's animated movies in the 1970s, was actually a pretty big box office and critical hit. Because of the Disney Renaissance, a lot of the post-Walt, pre-Little Mermaid era of Disney has been pretty much airbrushed out of history, but no, all these movies were relatively really successful. Now, in the 80s, there actually was a big Australian craze, thanks to various things like the music of Men at Work, Crocodile Dundee, of course, and the Mad Max movies, which caused Disney to try and capitalize on this trend. But here's the problem. Because animation takes such a long process, by the time it came out in 1990, the Australian craze was all but gone.
Yep, that's how it usually happens.
What's also interesting is that The Rescuers Down Under was the first time Disney had ever done a direct sequel to one of their works since The Three Caballeros.
Nice.
Because infamously, Walt Disney himself did not like sequels because he said of the Three Little Pigs shorts, he says, you can't top something with more of the same thing. So Disney never really did sequels. So for one to actually get a theatrical release like this, and a big budget one at that, is kind of surprising. The movie was actually released with the Mickey Mouse short, The Prince and the Pauper, and it got as much of the cast from the original as they could to reprise their roles, and that turned out to be an excellent decision, which we'll find out in a little bit. The movie begins with shots of various insects walking along the leaves and intimidating each other in a one-take shot that really just looks so impressive. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, even more so when you realize that certain scarlet warthog would mistake that as an Australian bug charcuterie board.
We then get the title card over the shot of a field, with the flowers being depicted in CGI, and what's interesting is this is just when it was starting to really become a major thing in movies with CGI animation. Like, before this, it was more of a novelty than anything else, but I think by this point, people were starting to sit up and say, oh right, this computer graphics, we can actually use it for things. We end on a shot of a zoom in on a house. In a really cool shot, it starts off in CGI, but then transitions into 2D as the camera goes through the window. We then get another really cool shot as we pan through the house if we're stopping at a hammock. It's hard to explain in audio, but the camera does kind of a 360 spin around the hammock to show Cody, our human protagonist. And this just looks so amazing. Like, you can really tell Disney tried pulling out all the stops for this movie.
Yep.
And they really didn't have to, but I'm so glad that they did because this movie just looks fantastic.
It's a freaking lootly, mate.
Cody then wakes up and stares out the window, then quickly puts a shirt on, and by judging from this opening, we have a young blonde boy waking up, putting on a shirt, and stumbling out of the house. I hope he doesn't find the laser gun from Laser Blast hidden in the bush there.
Oh boy.
Yeah, or dare I even mention it, take on the calamity that's been plaguing this land for over 100 years.
Grabbing his pocket knife, he then attempts to sneak out of the house before his mom stops him. Saying that he has sandwiches with him, he then runs off, with his mother telling him to be home for supper. Cody then runs off into the bush, telling a group of birds that he's coming. He then tells Nelson and Echidna that Faloo is sounding a call. Nelson looks annoyed here, obviously because his cousin Knuckles is the one who's getting all the success in the family.
Yeah, and here I thought it was Knuckles that was the one who doesn't chuckle.
Cody then slides down a log, telling the wombats to hurry up as they continue to run. Cody then catches up with Faloo, a female kangaroo, who is blowing into a log as a sort of siren, and yes, she is extremely dummy thick, as is the law for all female kangaroos in animation to be extremely dummy thick.
Yep.
Yeah, especially Disney kangaroos. Also, the horn she's blowing into is adjacent to a Australian instrument known as a didgeridoo. Yeah, she's basically blowing the didgeridoo of, hey, there's someone in trouble. So props to this movie for that.
Yeah, that is such a cool touch. I'm really glad that they do that. Cody then asks Falou who was caught this time. As she tells him that he doesn't know who it is, it turns out to be Marahut, a great golden eagle. Cody asks where she is, as Falou says that she's on a cliff, caught in a poacher's trap. Cody then hops onto Falou's back as they make their way through the field, with the music being really impressive here. Falou then points out that Marahut is on top of a ridge, then wishes him luck. Obviously, what happens is he's going to get to the ridge, but SpongeBob and Sandy are climbing it too. I'd say I'm already halfway there, halfway there, halfway there. We cut to Cody scaling the cliff, eventually making his way to the top. He comes across Marahute, who screeches and thrashes around. It turns out that she's afraid of his knife, but the boy then uses it to cut her bonds, saying that she is free. Marahute accidentally hits Cody with her wing, causing him to fall off the cliff. And wow, I was not expecting this movie to turn to Die Hard really quick. Oh god, I hope that's not one of the hostages.
Yeah. Even worse is if it would become Final Destination. Lord forbid in a Disney flick.
Unlike Hans Gruber, Cody is saved by her as they fly across the landscape. Two things to point out here. Number one, for the next 5 minutes, we see Cody flying along with Marahute, and it just looks so amazing. This is really where they pulled out all the stops to the animation. I truthfully had not seen this movie in a very long time, and this just blew me away with how good this was. Does it enhance the story? No, but it doesn't need to, because it's just such a feast for the eyes. It is mind-blowing how good this looks.
I've often made the argument that this next 5 minutes is some of, if not the most gorgeous animation in any animated movie. And this is from 1990, so we're going on 35 plus years, and this is still really hard to top just for how much of a visual spectacle it is. Disney pulled out all the stops for this one.
Yeah, even the 2010 anime movie, that movie in particular took close to 8 or 20 years, and that film nearly bankrupted the studio. That is the level that they need to top something like this, and oh boy, even then, this remains quite fluent, even by that standard.
This really just looks so impressive. The two then soar through the clouds as Cody looks directly in her eye and then smiles. He tells the golden eagle to go higher as she does so. She playfully tosses him before catching him in her talons as she caws at him and he caws right back. Marahute then takes him to a lake where he runs his feet along it and laughs, obviously giving Brad Bird the inspiration to do this in Incredibles about a decade and a half later.
Yeah, I think Marahute definitely joins the Mother Auroras from Pokemon as a mom who is initially deemed unreasonable at first, but good lordy, does she prove that wrong by just being just the most darling person, and honestly has a more hidden wisdom the more you look at her and get to know her as a character. Because, like, on the surface, yeah, it's just a few eagle, basically giant animal, but no, they actually took the time to give her a personality outside of just being a giant fucking eagle.
I would like to point out they kept a lot of the animals, if not all of them, fairly animal realistic in facial structure, particularly Marahute here and another character we're going to be talking about in a little bit. But even the ones that talk still are relatively accurate with very little humanization. This was 30 years before the live-action Lion King movie, so I would like to once again point out something got lost somewhere.
Yep. Well, a lot of things got lost in the live-action Lion King, let's be real.
Indeed.
Marahute and Cody then fly over a gorge, and no, we do not know if Homer tried to jump the gorge when he visited Australia, although that would be in character for him. Marahute then takes him to her nest. Oh, go ahead, Chuck.
To be fair, the last time he was in Australia, they released a frog plague to the whole country.
True. As Marahute takes Cody to her nest, he's amazed. She cradles him under her wing, Then they peer at each other for a few moments. She then shows him her eggs, which are hidden under a pile of leaves. Cody notes how warm they are and that they're ready to hatch soon, then asks where the daddy eagle is. Marahute is saddened by this as she then lowers her head, with Cody saying that his dad is gone too. He then takes one of her feathers and places it on the nest, only for her to give it to him as a gift.
This one moment right here cements all you need to know about Marahute. Marahute is more diverse than you honestly think, and this right here just proves that. We know so much more about her in these few minutes than we know about the entirety of the movie. It is that baffling.
We then cut to them back on the ground as she embraces him, then takes off. As Cody then runs through the outback pretending to be a bird, we then see a wanted poster for McLeach, the antagonist of the film. Cody then hears a jingling noise in a branch, only to find a mouse tied up in it. Cody asks the mouse what happened, as the mouse desperately tries telling him that it's a trap. Cody then falls in the ditch as we cut to McLeach in his vehicle, excitedly saying that he caught one. And there's actually two interesting things here. Number one is that McLeach is voiced by George C. Scott, General Patton himself, and this is also the same year that he was in The Exorcist Part 3. And number two is that he's currently driving in a vehicle that, to me, really reminded me of something out of Atlantis: The Lost Empire. It reminded me of the vehicles the whole group used in that movie, too. Which really makes me wonder if they kind of reused this design for that. And also, because this was the 80s Australian craze, it actually kind of gives me a little bit of Mad Max Road Warrior vibes with this weird-looking vehicle.
So two things real quick. First, I love the musical score they use for this vehicle. It's really cool and intimidating at the same time whenever it shows up. Speaking of the vehicle itself, though, I'm amazed that there's no redneck that's tried to at-home this. It looks really boss and feels like this is something that a do-it-yourselfer would have done. The other thing is, you saying that George C. Scott did The Exorcist Part 3 this year. I know him for something else that was released this year. He was the voice of Smoke, the villain from Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue.
Oh, God. Wow.
What a year, huh?
Wow, that's quite a resume. 3 very different types of movies in the same year. The mouse then leaves, only to return with the vine as Cody then tries climbing up it, only for McLeach to arrive in his vehicle. Cody attempts to climb out, but the vine snaps, knocking him back down to the pit. Joanna, McLeach's animal sidekick, then appears and jump scares the boy. This is the reason we are discussing this movie, because Joanna is a goanna, a lizard. Although she does not talk, she is voiced by Frank Welker, who does an absolutely fantastic job as always, making her feel like such a character. Her character design is more cartoonish, I'd feel, than some of the other ones in this movie, but at the same time, man, she is such a fun character. She doesn't say a single word, and yet you get such a great feeling of her character. I dare say she's probably the best silent animal sidekick since Diablo.
Yeah, I honestly agree. Marahute definitely shares the same thing that Joanna does. Honestly, where Marahute walked, Joanna absolutely sprinted. Kind of a missed opportunity, personally, but I honestly imagine Eartha Kitt would make a great voice for Joanna if she ever did get a speaking voice. And last thing, the dynamic between her and McLeach is quite interesting. You expect it to be a sort of Yzma and Kronk to something completely darker. This won't be the last time we get that sort of feeling, because we'll have every opportunity to explore it in this film.
At this point, Frank Welker has voiced so many characters we have done episodes on. I think that he's basically just like a shadow member of this podcast.
Yeah, he really is. I think, honestly, he has been in maybe 40 plus episodes to date, and that's counting because we're going to probably see him many more times, as well as probably redo some of the episodes with him in it. So stay tuned for those.
And you're kind of going with what I was saying, like, sure, they give her a lot of personality, but I am curious, what would have they done with her if she could speak like some of the other animals in the movie? What kind of personality and what kind of voice what will she say and all of that? I'm really curious about what could have been.
I could definitely see her with an Australian accent.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Now I'm imagining Eartha Kitt with an Australian accent. That'd be quite the coinkydink, guy.
McLeach then approaches the pit, asking Joanna what they today, saying it might be a dingo or a razorback before saying it's a human. McLeach is shocked at this, then begins berating and kicking Joanna about digging holes again, saying that dumb lizard is always trying to catch squirrels as Joanna whines. Cody says that it's a trap and that poaching is against the law. Oh, go ahead, Chuck.
Well, if they need holes, he should get Ed and just pay it quarters. Dig a hole, dig a hole.
Perfect.
Yeah.
McLeach appears shocked by this, then uses his rifle to help the boy out. He tells Cody that they'll fill up the hole and for him to go on home, but Cody says that McLeach is a poacher and it's a poacher's trap. Joanna sees the mouse in Cody's backpack and then tackles the boy, trying to get at it and knocking McLeach into the pit. McLeach then manages to pull himself out of the pit, muttering how he's gonna kill that no-good egg-sucking salamander, before Joanna continues to bite at Cody's bag. I do love this too, and again, we're gonna gush out a lot about her later on, but I love her facial expressions, especially the look of confusion that she does.
Yeah.
It really is just so much fun just how much personality they get out of her just from the way she looks at things. McLeach then points his gun at Joanna as she cowers in various ways and tries to hide. McLeach then notes Marahute's feather. He then smirks and praises Joanna, calling her a good girl as she snickers like the dog from Wacky Races. McLeach then asks Cody where he got the feather, as he tells her it was a present and that it's a secret. McLeach says it wasn't a secret to him, as he already killed Marahute's mate, then asks him where her and her eggs are. Cody screams no, as McLeach tells Joanna to catch him. The lizard manages to chase the boy to a body of water as a group of crocodiles emerge from it. And this movie is really great and all, don't get me wrong, this is such an underrated classic from Disney, but if just one of these girls was Kuka, that would have made this movie a perfect 10 out of 10.
Yep.
Nice.
Also, I'm just thinking, especially with the feather, if the bird was Kazooie, this guy will be dead right now, let's just say.
Yep, easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if this feather originated from the Mushroom Kingdom, Cody would be out of there. This would be a very short movie.
Cody then fumbles for his knife, but McLeach steps on his hand, telling him that he's coming with him. Cody yells that his mom will call the Rangers, as McLeach mockingly appears to be frightened by this, mocking Cody as Joanna laughs at him. Obviously, Cody's going to have to call a different kind of ranger to help him out. When the eyes of the ranger are upon you, any wrongdoing he'll see. When you're in Texas, look behind you. Wait, Texas? Oh, never mind. Well, that won't work.
Yep. And don't even call the Power Rangers. They'll destroy the whole Outback in their attempt to save it.
That too. McLeach then tosses Cody's backpack into the water, telling him how he'll tell his mother the gators got him. He then pulls Cody away as they drive off, with the mouse from earlier running into RAS office. He then tells the mouse working there that McLeach captured a little boy, as the mouse uses a telegram to get the message out. As the mouse does so, I have to point out one thing I love about this movie. The world building is so much fun. I love how all of the stuff they use is made up of salvaged material, and that there's another mouse who actually has to work the antenna. I just love when they do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice. Like seeing all these small little rodents and these animals having their own civilization, completely separate and mostly hidden from the actual human world up above. It's such a nice little touch when they do that sort of thing. And I think only Cats and Dogs 2 does that sort of thing as well. And it's a shame because more films would definitely benefit from world building like this.
I'd like to make a note for all the younger viewers here. A telegram used to be how we old people sent text messages, but with dots and dashes rather than letters, and someone had to translate that and then print it out and give it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness Dr. Stone educated us on that.
Yeah, I mean, like Luke said, the whole, go world building with the mice, making stuff with tiny pieces of whatever humans no longer use. It is really creative, but it's also kind of funny how, if you think about it, almost every time we have this tiny world reusing human stuff, it's always mice. Like, I don't know why they choose mice as the quote-unquote unofficial mascot of tiny worlds, because, there's like bugs and other stuff. But having Jerry, who popularized mice as the tiny creatures of the tiny world.
We then cut to a line from Australia making its way across the world, stopping at the Marshall Islands before a mouse there gets the signal and transmits it, with it going to the Hawaiian Islands. We then cut to a nerdy military officer who, weirdly enough, is a 1-to-1 replica of Eddie Deason. if this guy talked, he absolutely would have been voiced by Eddie Deason, which makes it so weird they modeled it after him. He sees the RAS code on his screen and looks confused. A pair of mice use semaphore to tell another mice to make a phone call, distracting the officer. I do like this quick, understated gag. All the mice there are wearing Hawaiian shirts. That actually took me a second to get, and when I got it, it was like, okay, that's really cute.
Yeah.
The trio of mice then transmit the message of Cody being kidnapped to New York, where it is sent there after making its way all across America. As we see New York City, there's one thing I want to point out. This movie has really fantastic animation. Like, I'm not going to mince words. This movie looks beautiful, but the CGI for New York City here is really obvious looking. This is just pure giant black boxes and rectangles, which really makes me wonder, couldn't they have just reused footage from Oliver and Company? They already had a movie set in New York and it looked beautiful.
Okay, devil's advocate on that one. First of all, it being covered by the blizzard in that setting makes it work a little bit. Like, not to the extent like something like Batman Mask of the Phantasm does with its CG, but... And second, I honestly think they use it well enough here that it gets a pass. Admittedly, yes, the CG is used better in other places in the movie, though, again, at the time the technology was a little undercooked and a little out of their wheelhouse. I still think it turned out pretty nice.
We then cut to the Rescue Aid Society as a mouse tells the others that there is a code red emergency, and there's an emergency meeting as all of the mice run down to the main office. The chair mouse then arrives, berating the Canadian delegate for still being in his pajamas before greeting others. The chair mouse is voiced by Bernard Fox, who reprised his role from the first movie, and later on, he actually would play the British officer in The Mummy, the one who was killed in Imhotep's sandstorm.
Oh, neato.
He tells everyone about the kidnapping in Australia, as he says that they need their two best agents in the field, only for Bernard and Bianca not to be there. We then cut to a fancy restaurant where, in a good gag, a group of crickets take a fallen pea from a plate and use a giant contraption to make soup out of it. We then see an entire mouse restaurant, to which I have to say this. Wow, good to Remy. He managed to expand his empire.
Yeah.
As we see the mouse restaurant, Bianca continues to talk to Bernard. Bianca is voiced by Ava Gabor, who also voiced Duchess from Aristocats, and her voice here is just as wonderful as it was there, and she honestly has one of the best wholesome voices that you have heard. It's honestly shocking why Disney hasn't used her in more things. She also reprises her role from the first Rescuers, by the way. She is just such a good voice actress. It honestly is surprising why she didn't become a major staple.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I want to draw attention to her outfit, which is basically just a ribbon and literally nothing else. I mean, there's also a hat, but she is basically in a restaurant wearing next to literally nothing. Yeah, I get it. They're mice, yada yada, gotta work with what they have, but I can't help but draw attention to that little fact when the fact that Bernard is a little more dressed than she is.
You could say he's dressed to the tails. Waka waka. Ava Gabor. I know that people tend to go for Zsa Zsa over Ava because Zsa Zsa was in so much more. But what Ava was in, she was always fantastic in, and she's always been my favorite of the Gabor sisters. And hearing her voice is always an auditory treat.
I mean, yeah, they're just one of my favorite Disney characters for the reason, so...
Going back to what Angron was saying, you're really gonna try to bring that up when remember a certain scene in The Great Mouse Detective featuring another mice girl?
Oh, absolutely.
This actually would turn out to be not only her final film role, but her final role in acting, period. And 1990 would also be a good year for her in other ways because her voice was sampled in the song Groove is in the Heart. Bernard, voiced by Bob Newhart reprising his role from the first movie, is nervous about something as he attempts to propose to her, but he drops the ring, causing him to crawl down to the floor to get it. As he continues to roll away from him, going underneath another couple's table, a cricket waiter arrives, telling Bianca that they have been asked to accept a dangerous mission in Australia. As Bianca is in shock at this, she tells the waiter to find Bernard as Bernard is trying to get the ring. It turns out to be on a heavy-set mouse's foot, and he grabs it. In a really funny joke, The mouse thinks that her suitor played footsie with her and punches him in the face, which that got a laugh at me, just how unexpected it was.
Watching that scene these days, I can't help but hear, "How dare you!"
Yeah. How dare you proceed to boot him across the restaurant?
As Bernard gets the ring, he tries getting the courage to ask Bianca if she would marry him, as the cricket waiter tries telling him about the situation. He ignores the waiter, as the waiter then bumps into several of his colleagues. Bernard returns to the table and tries to propose, but Bianca says how she knows all about it. It turns out that she's talking about the mission, but he thinks that she's talking about the proposal, as he says that they can get married in April, but she says that they will do it tonight. Bernard is confused at this, so they run out of the restaurant, saying how she needs a gown. She says that all she needs is khaki and hiking boots, making him even more confused. Bernard and Bianca then arrive into the headquarters, as Bianca tells the others that they've accepted the mission to Australia. Bernard is confused at all of this, as all of the other mice cheer, with the chair mouse continuing to shake Bernard's hand. We then cut outside to the Albatross Air sign, now covered in snow, as Bernard tries to nervously tell Bianca that it's not a good idea to fly so soon after eating. Bianca tells Bernard to knock on the door to see if Orville is there. Bernard does so, only to be covered up by snow, as Bianca tells him this is no time for playing around. He nervously tries to explain it was an avalanche, as Bianca sees a sign saying, "Under new management, go see Wilbur." They then go into a hangar to see Wilbur dancing to a rock song. Wilbur is the replacement for Orville, and haha, Wright Brothers joke, but Wilbur is the replacement for Orville, because sadly, Orville's voice actor had passed away in between the two Rescuers movies. However, they did get a fantastic replacement because Wilbur is voiced by none other than John Candy, which pretty much ensures that he is going to be a standout of this movie because anything John Candy was in, he always stole the show.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of funny in context that he did Plane, Trains, and Automobiles because this is going to be one of those rides or going to be just a wild ride in general.
For as much as I think that George C. Scott's character is the best acted because, well, it's George C. Scott, John Candy's is absolutely the funniest, and I don't know this for sure, but I can take a pretty good guess. I think John Candy basically just ad-libbed all of his lines because the goofy stuff that he says is all hilarious, and the animators just found a way to roll with it.
Oh, it is absolutely incredible. He does such a great job with it, which makes it kind of sadder that, well, number one, he almost was going to be in Pocahontas as the animal sidekick in that, but sadly he passed away before they really could record. As he continues to dance around, Bianca realizes that he can't hear them, as Bernard has to turn off the music. In a detail that they didn't have to put in, but I'm glad they did, the volume of the radio nearly blows him away, which, I'm sorry, that's just a cute little detail right there. As Wilbur continues to dance around, he then realizes that the music was shut off. Miss Bianca tries to explain who they are, as Wilbur instantly recognizes her, saying how his brother told him all about her and kisses her hand. Bernard, annoyed at this, said they needed to charter a flight out of there immediately. Wilbur shows them the sign for Albatross Air, noting how it's a fair fare, then laughs at his own joke. He then babbles about how they have various destinations for a romantic getaway and the various kind of soft drinks they serve. And as Matt said, this feels so much like ad-lib from John Candy, and yet it is so natural. It is absolutely amazing. Like, this really feels like a test run for what would happen with the genie a couple of years later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Every bit of John Candy's energy, fluidity, and just overall personality is captured in Wilbur, and it is just a downright charm to see, even in some of the lower points, which we'll get to. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed seeing Wilbur.
Bernard then says that they have to go to Australia, as Wilbur asks when they want to go, making various suggestions for what time of year to leave. Bianca says that they have to leave that very night, causing Wilbur to spit his drink out onto Bernard. He tells them that it's impossible for them to leave tonight and that their, quote, jolly holiday will have to wait. Bernard tells them about Cody being in trouble, as Wilbur is shocked at this, saying how it's a kid's duty to run around free, eat cookies and milk, and get those little white mustaches, yelling how no one takes a kid's freedom while I'm around. Wow, this Uncle Buck sequel really went in a different direction, didn't it? He then says that he's at their service and prepares himself to leave, opening the door only to be knocked away by the wind. He then manages to get out and slip on the ice before taking off, diving off the building in a shot that really is so impressive because it feels like, the best way to describe it, it's like the camera moves with him. And this really is just so impressive that it shocked me just how good this part looked.
Yes, but can we really call this a rescuers movie with a New York landscape if there isn't a poster of a nude lady hidden somewhere in the background?
Nice. But what is less impressive is the CGI cars that he nearly bumps into, because the weird thing about them, it's not even that they appear to be poorly rendered in the shot. They just appear to be poorly rendered in general. They appear literally just to be giant black squares with little dot headlights, which, again, it's 1990, CGI was in its infancy, especially used in feature-length animated films like this. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, you couldn't have just drawn like just one car in 2D and it would have aged a lot better than this?
It's just as this movie predicted the Tesla.
That's great. But Bianca asks Wilbur if this is a non-stop flight to Australia, as Wilbur says no, they have to make connections with a bigger bird, and sadly, no, it is not Kazooie.
Nor is it Big Bird.
As they fly off, we then cut back to the Australian outback as Cody is driven to some abandoned mines, which is McLeach's hideout. Cody tries calling out for help as McLeach yells at him to be quiet, knocking him off his feet. McLeach then mockingly sings a verse of Home on the Range, rewritten to be all about how much he loves to poach and kill animals. And hey, he's singing Home on the Range. Obviously, we know what's going to happen. Maggie, Grace, and Calloway are going to show up and beat the hell out of him.
If only.
Yeah. We then cut back to Cody's house as we get a brief shot of his mother calling out for him. We then cut to an airplane as Wilbur, Bernard, and Bianca are stowing away on there. Bianca awakens Bernard with a kiss, as she then says how they have to wake up Wilbur. Wilbur is asleep and nearly rolls over on them before waking up, saying, "Must have been sleeping on a bolt." The plane wheels begin to lower as Wilbur leaps out, soaring downwards. Bianca is thrilled by this as Bernard is afraid, closing his eyes and screaming. They then fly past the Sydney Opera House. I know Cody is important and all, nothing wrong with that, but it couldn't have taken 5 minutes out of your schedule to rescue Nemo from the dentist? They then take to the skies as Bernard asks Bianca if, couldn't we just take the train next time?
When Wilbur is jumping out of the plane, Eva Gabor gives just the sweetest wee that you have ever heard. Like it's a shot of like straight sugar into your veins.
Yeah, fucking slap the rubber band, shoot it in, have a good time for the rest of the film. Also, on Bernard's whole comment about there be taking a train, I am terribly sorry, but this ain't exactly the blue world, so water trains haven't exactly been invented yet.
We then get a beautiful shot of the Australian landscape, which is then panned towards a building. Jake, the Royal Aid Society representative there, tells Sparky that you're getting what's coming to you. We then cut to him playing checkers with a fly. Now, Jake definitely looks like someone that they wanted to have Paul Hogan voice, but they couldn't get him for whatever reason. Jake seems to win the game of checkers before Sparky easily beats him, causing Jake to sarcastically remark, "Wise fly." Wilbur calls in, telling Jake that they want to land there. Jake looks through his list of birds before seeing that the albatross is far too large and that they can't land there. Wilbur argues about this with Jake over a radio before coming in. Jake and Sparky try to extend the runway as Wilbur crashes into the roof, his voice stuttering as he does so in a really good gag. As he nearly falls off the roof, the pair then extends an umbrella out as he spins around it. Jake and Sparky then create a drag line by using a wire hanger and a bra, then managing to get Wilbur in it. He nearly crashes it, but is alright as he quips, "Don't tell me the runway is too short," then notices the bra and hands it to Jake, launching the mouse away. As Wilbur gives a goodbye speech, Jake mutters about "crazy Yanks," before then seeing Miss Bianca and being smitten by her, saying that if there's anything that she needs, he'll take care of it, taking her bag. Bernard is annoyed at this as he has an armful of luggage. Wilbur tries to take the luggage but manages to hurt his back as he yells in pain and waddles around. As Bianca asks if he's alright, Jake tells Sparky to watch the tower as they have to get the bird to the hospital. We then cut to the hospital, which turns out to be an abandoned ambulance in the middle of nowhere. Obviously, that was the ambulance that was going to take Homer to the hospital after he fell down the gorge. As Bernard is lowered into it by a group of mice nurses, Wilbur tries telling him that he's alright, but hurts his back again. Bianca says that they'll be back when they rescue the boy, and she then asks the doctor if he'll be alright. The doctor says that Wilbur should be better soon, saying how they all come in with a whimper but leave with a grin.
I'm prepared to do whatever it takes. And also, here is where the side story of Wilbur's suffering begins. You know that low point I mentioned earlier? I mean, it's not bad, it's still funny, it's still John Candy being in his element. Man, does this film making Wilbur suffer a little too much. Not to the extent that it's not funny, but this guy needs to get a raise after this.
This is padding, but it's very, very funny padding, so it's a kind of let slide. As Bernard and Bianca leave, the doctor prepares a back brace for Wilbur, which is a cane directly launched into his back. The doctor says that he's missing teeth for this and asks Wilbur how he's doing, saying that he'll have to take more drastic measures, and the bird says, "I've never been more relaxed in my life." The doctor says that he's not convinced and prepares a shot for Wilbur administered by the nurses. The mice nurses are all voiced by Russie Taylor, and I know this because she's just using her Minnie Mouse voice for them. As they get him into position, they literally fire the shot into him, causing him to scream as we cut to an exterior shot before the impact and a pretty good gag. We then cut to Bernard reading a map as Jake asks Bianca if you and your husband are here on an expedition. Bianca tells him that her and Bernard are not married, as Bernard tells Jake they're on a top secret mission. Jake tells him that he knows all about the kid McLeach kidnapped and that in the outback it's hard to keep secrets. He then asks them which way they're going, to Suicide Trail through Nightmare Canyon or through Satan's Ridge. Come on, those aren't place names. Those are just hair metal bands. Like, they're gonna go past Poison and Def Leppard next.
Nice.
Yeah, this is completely fictional and there's no way this is real. Those places are too nice sounding for Australia.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
He tells them all about the various dangers of the outback, as Bernard says that none of it is on the map. Jake tells them that they can't trust a map and they need someone with real experience, causing Bianca to ask if he'll guide them. Jake instantly takes Bianca under the arm, telling her all about the various things that he did in his life. Bernard is upset at Jake not even knowing how to fold a map. We then cut to some rangers looking at a missing poster of Cody, as Jake, Bernard, and Bianca are all riding on top of a flying squirrel. Jake and Bianca are sitting up front, while Bernard is hanging onto the tail. As they fly across the landscape, Jake holds Bianca closer, much to Bernard's anger. As Jake lets Bianca off the squirrel, Bernard gets launched away into another tree and is then covered by thorns. And after this relatively light-hearted comedic moment, we then cut back to McLeach's lair, which is done up in a really creepy way. Like, we went from happy, fun time Disney slapstick to Wolf Creek, the animated series. As McLeach is sharpening his knives, he says that maybe there's a way to refresh your memory. Joanna, meanwhile, is in a bathtub and is stuffing her face with animal crackers in a cute joke. He then asks Cody if it's on Satan's Ridge or Nightmare Canyon, throwing knives at the wall in order to both scare Cody and point out the location.
Sometimes with these two, it goes from Yzma and Kronk to Joker and Harley Quinn. Makes sense, given that Batman the Animated Series came out around this time, but pretty dark stuff for a Disney animated film.
McLeach then asks Joanna what she thinks, as she takes a cookie and snaps it in half. She actually manages to make this look really intimidating, as McLeach then throws his knife at Croc Falls, nearly hitting the boy before he ducks out of frame. McLeach then tells Cody that Marahute is worth a fortune and offers to split the money he gets from her 50-50 with him. Cody tells McLeach that he won't have any money once the Rangers get him, and this manages to enrage McLeach so much he kicks over a boiling cauldron and begins screaming in rage as Joanna cowers over this, which really shows McLeach is probably one of the scariest Disney villains just because of how realistic he is. He's not some evil sorcerer, he's not an evil vizier, he's just some jerk who wants to kill animals for money and has no qualms with killing kids to get it, which, that is some dark stuff.
Yeah, I've always said that McLeach is one of Disney's most underrated villains of all time, and it is by and large because this is George C. Scott. I'm reminded of an anecdote that is very famous in acting circles. Maureen Stapleton, famous actress of stage and screen, once said, I don't know what to do. I'm scared of George C. Scott, to which Mike Nichols, the director for the movie that she was in at the time, said, my dear, everyone is scared of George C. Scott.
Amazing.
Yeah, even we're scared of George C. Scott, and for all we know, he might as well be a nice guy like frickin' Clancy Brown is. You never know.
We then cut to Bianca picking the thorns off to Bernard as he notes that Jake hasn't been seen in a while. Bernard asks if he should look for Jake as Bianca says that he can handle things. Knowing that they are alone again, Bernard attempts to pull out the ring and asks Bianca to marry him, only for a giant snake to block them. Jake manages to fight it off, nearly getting eaten before tying its snout that they needed to help get them where they need to go. Bernard is knocked into the water as Jake tells Bianca that snakes are harmless once you look them in the eye and tells them who's boss. Then ride off as Bianca tells Bernard that Jake has everything under control. Bernard grabs the ring from out of the water and sighs as Jake tells more of his stories. We then cut to Cody being thrown into a cell as McLeach says he'll give him a night to think it over, but the next day, he better watch out. As McLeach slams the door shut, Joanna gets her tail cut in a door and whines as McLeach berates her. Cody says that he'll never tell where Marhute is, as a frilled lizard then pops up, saying that he won't tell either. Cody asks where the lizard came from as he nervously says, the desert. We then see various other caged animals there, including a koala, who I recognized right away. He's voiced by Douglas Seal, who also was the Sultan in Aladdin because he uses the exact same voice here. The koala says that McLeach is finally poaching his own kind and says that there's no way out. The lizard is upset at this as the koala says that there is a way out. Some will be skinned as wallets, others as belts, and Frank the lizard will be used as a purse.
He's also the voice of Santa from Ernest Saves Christmas, and all I can think of when I hear that, the koala going like, capturing us in cages in Australia on Christmas Eve.
Frank then weeps to Cody not to let this happen to him, as Cody says that they all think together, they can all find a way out of it. Frank tries to come up with a solution as the kangaroo jokes that you don't want to hurt yourself again. Frank then realizes that if they can get the keys, they can escape. The koala is cynical about this, as Cody then sees planks of wood nearby and gets an idea. The captured animals all work together to get the wood, as Cody realizes that they need something to tie it together. Frank gets smacked by one of McLeach's boots in a really good visual gag. We then cut to them using shoelaces in McLeach's boots to tie the rope together. As they do so, they nearly manage to get the keys, but Joanna bursts in at the last second. I do love this moment too, just how much character she has. Flicking her tongue out, she sees that the keys are wrapped around her tail and smashes the wood. She then places the keys on the wall and holds her head up like, so there. Then leaves, getting her butt caught in the flap as she does so. And I love that they give her so much character with her having these kind of expressions. It is so incredible.
So just before this happened, Frank just kept saying, yeah, yeah, no, no, yeah, yeah, as they're getting closer to the keys, to which Krebs, the Douglas Seal koala, just says, will somebody shut him up? All I could think when I heard that was, I see, so this is the critic stand-in character.
Yeah, just the moment where Joanna isn't at the mercy of McLeach, again, she is a smug little diva. She, in her own right, is her own kind of mastermind. She doesn't have too much intelligence, but the stuff she does have makes her quite a threat to be reckoned with, even compared to McLeach.
Frank then tries to pick the lock with his tail as he babbles insanely out of fear. We then cut to Bernard, Bianca, and Jake all riding fireflies, with Bernard not being as good of it as the other two. After nearly landing in the water, the trio then fly into the night sky. We then fade back into the ambulance as Wilbur wakes up, saying how he feels like he has his head in a vice. It turns out that he actually does have his head in a vice as he groans, while the doctor, Mouse, and the nurses all prepare for his treatment. Looking at an x-ray, they forego several other medical devices, and they decide to use a chainsaw on Wilbur. It's nice to know that they took medical classes from the Sawyer family. You know, it's really nice of them to do that.
Yep.
I would also not be surprised if they also took medical practices from the TF2 medic. I will heal you.
So it felt a little weird with the very quick, like 20-second transition to the main cast flying on the Fireflies and then immediately over to Wilbur, and we're focusing on Wilbur. Until again, you remember it's John Candy, and I'm pretty sure they were like, we have John Candy, we're fucking using him.
I mean, why wouldn't you? Wilbur has had enough of this and tries to flee, and they play a background sound effect here that sounds exactly like the metal pipe meme. So it makes me wonder if they actually used that stock sound here before it became a meme decades later, so pretty funny. The doctor and nurses all try to catch Wilbur as he tries to leave through the window while they try to pull him in. This actually manages to cure Wilbur while also hurting the doctor's back in the process, as Wilbur runs out of the ambulance and takes off to the skies. We then cut to Cody's house, where the Rangers present Cody's mother with his torn up backpack, as a radio report says that the search has been called off due to this. In his lair, McLeach gloats about this, before noting that he's hungry as Joanna is sleeping next to him. One thing it actually took me a couple of viewings to notice, in a really dark twist, almost all of the furniture in his lair is made from some sort of an animal.
Yeah, takes it home that he's 100% a poacher.
He's basically Cruella de Vil, but he likes furniture rather than clothing.
Very true, very true. As McLeach goes to the fridge to get eggs, Joanna excitedly wakes up and runs towards the box as McLeach muses about how he can get Cody to tell him about Marahute. Joanna takes one of the eggs, causing McLeach to ask her if she took one. She shrugs no as he demands to open her mouth as she shows that it's not in there. He then grabs her neck, showing that she's actually holding the egg under her tongue. Obviously, she got the idea from Bubble Bass, yelling that these are not Joanna eggs, and probably the funniest sequence of the movie, at least for me. As Joanna eats it, McLeach continues to wonder what to do, because as he tries to push the toolbox of eggs away from her, she continuously tries to open it. Eventually, he slams the box onto her hands, causing her to yelp and McLeach to say, "You got your hand caught in the cookie jar," and laugh. He then yells at Joanna, calling her a big dumb animal, and no, she does not go to the hat shop here. He then yells about how he's twice as smart as she is, only for him to see that she managed to take all the eggs away from him and eat it while he was rambling, which, I'm sorry, this is funny there. The way this slapstick is done is so great. Joanna eat the eggs is a lot more fun than Smash Mouth to eat the eggs. Let's be real.
Of course McLeach has twice the mental faculties of Joanna. He didn't make it through the third grade for nothing.
McLeach then yells at Joanna about he gives her all kind of eggs, including eagle eggs, but not for her to take his. He then gets an idea on how to get Cody to tell him where Marahute is, as Joanna cowers. McLeach here, he looks just so creepy in this shot. They actually draw him with red eyes in this sequence, just to show how messed up this guy is. They give him a full-on villain face here. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Ichabod Crane, where they do the same thing with Brom Bones.
I've actually argued that this is one of the creepiest images Disney has ever made, with McLeach saying this. It's also really helped by George C. Scott, shock, because the way that he's saying this is he's sort of saying this in an evil whisper kind of way, and I feel like this is a line delivery that only someone like George C. Scott could do to make as intimidating as it is, because when you see all of this together, oh, it's terrifying.
Indeed, yeah. The gradual eyes turning red, him hovering over a very fearful Joanna. This goes from Merry Melodies to Joker and Harley Quinn in a second, and this here is the peak of that.
We then cut to the cells as Frank continues to try to open the door with his tail, but nothing happens. Frank finally weeps about how hopeless all this is. Just as the door manages to open, the other animals all note that he's out, as Cody tells Frank to go get the keys. Frank tries using a piece of wood to get the keys, but it's too short, as the others have to tell him to use a box to get it. Frank then tries getting the keys, but then notes how heavy it is, kicking it over to the flap. He then strolls over to get it before Joanna suddenly bursts in, chasing him around the room. The kangaroo tells Frank to give him the keys, as Frank is then chased by Joanna. They then crash into a pile of wood on the wall, only for Frank to then use the keys as a bridle and literally ride Joanna around like a horse, which that got a really good laugh out of me.
Another example of how the mood swings here, because we gone from a very creepy moment to a really comedic moment.
Frank then manages to get the keys to Cody as he is then chased onto the rifle. Joanna fumbles, trying to get Frank before accidentally causing the gun to go off, causing Joanna to crash into a nearby crate. Cody manages to get out of his cage just before McLeach arrives to confront him. As he drags him out, McLeach demands that Frank get back in his cage as he does so. He then pulls Cody out of the room, telling him to say goodbye to his animal friends. It's the last you'll ever see of them. This is the last we see of these animals. We never see them again in the film after this, which, granted, knowing what happened with McLeach later on probably makes sense, but still, it's kind of weird that we don't get a sequence of them in the end all being free and being happy or something like that. It's like, no, for all we know, they're still in cages.
Yeah, so after McLeach said this is the last you'll ever see them, and quite literally this is the last we ever see them, like, look, I know Disney has the subtlety of a sledgehammer sometimes, but that's not a wink and a nod at the audience. That's a full-on, oh hey, we're just writing them out from this point forward.
Okay, first of all, yeah, very subtle thing there that they did for Disney. Second of all, thankfully, unlike a certain other film, Pinocchio, they're left there, but it doesn't really sound like anyone really did anything to them afterwards. So either they found a way to escape or the Rangers found his place, rescued him. We don't know. It's left ambiguous, but that sort of ambiguity is honestly a lot more hopeful than Pinocchio.
Basically what you just said, because, hey, but for all we know, at the end of the movie, at least one of the characters was in this lair. Now the animals are here, so after everything was solved, it's very likely they told the Rangers where to find them and save them.
We then cut to Jake, Bianca, and Bernard arriving to McLeach's lair with a really cool-looking sandstorm effect. As Bernard and Bianca arrive at the gates, they then say that they have to start digging, as Jake quips, "Has anybody tried open sesame?" as the door opened. Why did it work for Jake and yet Patrick Star had such a hard time with it?
Yeah, or you could do what Mario did and just go, open salami. I mean, it's Australia, but hey, anything's possible, mate.
The trio then managed to climb on top of the garage as they see Cody being thrown out by McLeach. McLeach tells Cody that someone killed Marahute by shooting her out of the sky. McLeach tells Cody that someone killed Marahute by shooting her out of the sky, as Joanna pretends to die in front of him. Cody is horrified by this, as McLeach says that he could have had the eagle if not for Cody, and tells him to leave. Bernard and Jake wonder what he's up to, as McLeach laments about the eggs to Joanna and how they'll die without their mother. Cody then runs off crying, as McLeach and Joanna go back inside, then come out in their vehicle and follow Cody. McLeach then says, "I didn't get through 3rd grade for nothing," as Jake then leaps on top of the car.
Want further proof why McLeach is so underrated in this film? Moments like this. Is he like full big brain time Markiplier sort of smart? Not really. Is he still crafty enough to come up with something like that? Oh, you better believe it. Like, irredeemable is only 95% his whole deal. The rest is just Looney Tunes antics.
Bernard and Bianca then leap onto the vehicle but land on the wrong spot, falling onto the tank treads. This actually reminds me a little bit of a sequence from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which makes me wonder if they actually were inspired by that for this. The two then run it for a few moments, nearly getting crushed before hiding through the treads. They then swing on a string to Jake as the car then drives off. We then cut to Wilbur flying in the sky before trying to hit on a group of cranes, asking them if they've seen 2 little mice before they haughtily fly away, as Wilbur remarks that he actually meant it. We cut to Cody beginning to scale the ridge while Jake, Bernard, and Bianca get off the car, saying how they have to help him. Cody manages to get to the nest and places Marahute's feather on the eggs as his eyes well up. Bernard, Bianca, and Jake then arrive, as Bianca tells Cody that he is in danger, as Cody then sees that Marahute is alive. Bernard tries telling him that McLeach is on the cliff, as Cody tries telling Marahute to stay away and that she's in danger. However, she then fires a rocket which has a giant net and manages to capture the bird. McLeach laughs at this, as Cody grabs onto the bag, while Jake and Bianca grab onto Cody, with Bernard being left behind. The quartet are then put inside of a cage, as McLeach gloats about being rich thanks to Marahute. He then tells Joanna that they'll keep her a rare bird by having Joanna eat her eggs. He then has her go get the eggs, but in a fun touch, she sees the cliff and is afraid to go down, as McLeach then throws her off of it. So he hates pretty much all animals, not even his best friend. As she is then lowered down, she gets the nest. She then tries to eat one, only to break a tooth. finding out that the eggs are actually just rocks. She then knocks them off the cliff with her butt as she laughs evilly, only to be bonked against a rock as she is pulled upwards. It turns out that Bernard actually hid the real eggs as Wilbur then arrives, with Bernard scaring Wilbur and nearly falling off. Bernard tells Wilbur that Cody, Jake, and Bianca have all been kidnapped, as Wilbur says that Bernard will search the desert while he searches the beaches. Bernard tells Wilbur that the eggs are right here and they need his help, as Wilbur refuses. I always love this gag where a character goes, "You can't make me, you can't make me," and then cut to them doing it and it's like, "You still can't make me." They very much do that here, and John Candy's delivery with it really works out.
Yeah.
We cut to him sitting on the eggs with a grumpy expression on his face. We then cut to McLeach and Joanna driving off, as Cody yells about the Rangers. McLeach then peers towards Joanna, saying how they have loose ends to tie up. Joanna then hisses at Cody, who makes a face at her. She then does it back to him, only for him to punch her in the nose. So, Cody's a brave boy right there.
Yeah, more brave than Markiplier for sure.
Bianca then tells Cody not to lose hope as Bernard is still out there. Jake agrees, then whispers to Bianca how it's a good bluff, only for her to say how she isn't bluffing. She knows Bernard and how he will never give up. We then cut to Bernard trying to chase the car before getting tired and seeing how he has a long way to go. He then approaches the sleeping Razorback, asking it to get him there. It then growls at him before he gets all forceful like Jake, saying that it will bring him there no matter what, then rides it off. We then cut to a series of waterfalls as McLeach has now Cody tied to a hook. He laughs about teaching Cody how to fish for crocodiles and how he has to use live bait. Obviously, there's only one guy who could save him now. James Bond is going to show up running on the backs of the crocodiles, and then, oh no, wait, that's Live and Let Die. Never mind. Cody's in trouble. He then dangles the boy over the water as he sings loudly and laughs evilly, telling the crocs to go get their supper.
From this point forward, it's basically nothing but McLeach laughing his ass off, which I think pound for pound, George C. Scott has the best villain laugh of any Disney villain that's ever had a maniacal cackle. And second, between the initial song of Home on the Range and now this one, You Get a Line, I'll Get a Pole, I just want an album of George C. Scott singing show tunes.
Yeah. Also, one thing I want to note, throughout the entire movie, the only two protags and antags that have ever really met each other in that regard are Joanna and the mice. Like, McLeach, for all he knows, the mice don't even exist. Like, unlike the first film, this is one of the rare instances where the bad guy and the good guy don't exactly meet each other.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Although, technically, they do have a physical encounter, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. But Jake and Bianca then wonder what to do as Cody is dipped in the water, then pulled out. McLeach laughs evilly and yells, "The Rangers looked so hard to find ya. Now they really will." The winch then stops working as McLeach wonders what happened. It turns out to be the Razorback, which runs away. McLeach then asks Joanna about the Razorback, and I do love this, how he asks her so sweetly, and Joanna looks so proud that, "Did you know there was a Razorback in my truck?" And she nods so eagerly like a happy house pet, and then he screams at her. As she runs off, he goes to his car only to find the keys are not in the ignition, which turns out to be because Bernard is hiding them. McLeach fumbles for the keys, saying how he senses a big fat rat and starts to growl. Bernard jumps down with the keys, only for Joanna to chase him. She manages to bonk her head on the underside of the car, as he then throws Bianca and Jake the keys. Joanna then chases Bernard around as McLeach pulls out a rifle, saying how there's more than one way to skin a cat, and the first time I saw this, I actually thought he was going to try to shoot Cody. It turns out that he actually ends up just shooting the rope holding Cody up. As Joanna accidentally bites into her own tail, Bernard gets an idea and teases Joanna as she continues to chase him. Bernard then manages to climb on top of McLeach's back. Joanna then tackles McLeach, causing them both to nearly fall off the cliff. Bernard, seeing this, walks up to McLeach and kicks his shoe, causing the two of them to fall off into the water. So that means Bernard is one of the few Disney heroes to outright kill the villain themselves.
Yeah, indirectly, but yeah, I think that's the first time we got a protag that actively commits a legit ill taking a line from Back to the Future. Bernard! I hate Bernard!
As they fall into the water, Joanna is hiding on top of McLeach's hat as he yells at her to get off of him. McLeach pushes her off of him as she manages to swim to safety. Cody falls into the water, with Bernard leaping in to save him by tying the rope to a log. McLeach just barely manages to avoid all of the crocodiles, laughing insanely about how he managed to survive. Then passes Joanna, who, in a really great touch, she actually waves him goodbye because, it turns out, he then falls over a waterfall, which not only turns out to be the last of McLeach for obvious reasons, but this is also the last we see of Joanna as well.
So first, before McLeach goes off the waterfall, this is where we learn that he is called Percival C. McLeach. And I've always thought he's called Percival C. McLeach because George C. Scott, so that was an intentional thing. And secondly, 90s Disney villains met gruesome ends. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he was the first, but he certainly wouldn't be the last. Anyway, so on the topic of his name, there's only one Percival that honestly met an even less dismal fate than him, and he just so happens to be part of a D&D team that Critical Role had kept around for quite a while now.
So it is kind of funny how the demise of both antagonists of these two movies have something to do with crocodiles in a way. Like Medusa in the first one, it is heavily implied that he gets eaten by her own crocodiles, and here he gets to fight some crocodiles before the crocodiles are like, nope, we are out of here because here comes the waterfall.
Cody and Bernard nearly go over the falls as well, but Jake and Bianca manage to save them with Marahute, who flies out and manages to save all of them. The group then triumphantly fly off, with Cody and Marahute calling to each other. Bianca hugs Bernard, saying how he is a true hero, as Bernard then proposes to Bianca, who accepts. Jake gives Bernard a thumbs up, as Cody tells Marahute to take them all home as she flies off. We then pan down to the cliff, where it turns out that Wilbur is still waiting there, taking care of all of the eggs before they manage to hatch. The movie then ends with Wilbur saying how cute they are before one of them bites his finger and he yells at it. That's pretty much it for the movie. The Rescuers Down Under got really fantastic reviews, with people saying that it was some of Disney's best. However, it did not do good at the box office. This is because of two reasons. Number one was the movie it was directly up against, which was some little indie movie. You might have heard of it, you might have not. It was some Christmas picture called Home Alone.
Nope, never heard of it.
Yep. A movie which, ironically enough, also featured John Candy in it. So, no matter what, he won that season.
Yep.
But there was a bigger reason why it didn't do well. It's not just because it had to compete against Home Alone. 2 weeks in, seeing how the box office was not doing as good as they had hoped, Jeffrey Katzenberg pulled all advertising for the movie. This is such a boneheaded move that I don't know where to begin with it.
That might have a place to start.
It's so shocking, that they actually did something like that.
So yeah, people have argued that this was a completely and totally idiotic move on the part of Katzenberg, and there are many things that I can say about Katzenberg. He's a petulant child that will take his ball and go home if he doesn't get his way. He has an ego the size of Texas. He is petty to a fault. He's not an idiot. He's all those things, which is the problem, though. He saw that this wasn't making all the money and was like, well, fuck it. The whole take your ball and go thing.
It's so weird. It really, really is. Regardless, I really enjoyed this movie, and it really is such a shame that it did not do any better at the box office, because if any movie deserved to do better, it was this one.
You're right, mate.
That's going to lead to the question of the week, which is, what is your favorite bit of Australian media or Australian-inspired media? I'll go first, and I have a rather interesting choice for it, because technically it's 2 movies in one. My choice is going to be a movie from Peter Weir, who later on would make the movie The Truman Show, but this is one of his first movies called The Cars That Ate Paris. Now, what it's about a group of brothers getting caught in this small rural town that turns out to be ruled by an evil mayor and that, and it's a group where a group of delinquents go on these crazy cars, these really amazing detailed automobiles and that look just so cool. It's like Death Race 2000 times 20 with this, and you can actually tell they got a lot of inspiration for Mad Max from this. And with a giant spiked Volkswagen being the most famous car from this movie. But it really is a great movie. The acting is good. The story's gripping. The effects are amazing. But the original movie is a realistic movie about two guys trapped in a town with a dark secret. Now, when they released this overseas initially, it was released by all companies, New Line Cinema, who decided to change the title. They changed the title to The Cars That Eat People. And what they did was they made one tiny little change that changes the entire course of the movie. They made the cars alive in that they added roaring and growling sounds anytime you see the cars. So instead of being driven by a bunch of juvenile delinquents, this is now about a movie about a town where the cars come to life and run over people, which is so ridiculous. It's like, why would you do this? You took an art house experimental film and you tried making it something completely different. It is so weird. It's actually funny. The original really is such a great, great movie. And I'm going to be honest, the Cars That Eat People cut is really worth watching at least once or twice because, man, it's just so bizarre. It actually has to make you laugh. But kind of a short answer there, but that's going to be my pick. Of course, I could pick some other ones like the Mad Max series, which all of them are good. Yes, all of them. And, there's just so many other ones that are great. That's going to be my pick. It's going to be a bit of an indie movie, The Cars That Ate Paris / The Cars That Eat People. Angron, what would your pick be?
I would ultimately take this time to give a nod to Productions, since they themselves are an Australian animation company, indie as they are. I think I'm gonna go with a relatively recent one. Still a goodie, though. And I have 2 words that pretty much will give you an idea of what I mean. Yep, we're talking about Bluey, a kids show that had no right to be as clever as it was, and the emotion that it has, the comedy, the characters. Hell, one of them starred in an Adventure Time HBO Max series. The voice actor, not the actual character. This series about a bunch of anthrocanines in modern day Australia doing so many things, learning lessons in such creative ways and telling stories in such creative ways, and just so amazing. Words cannot describe how darling this show really is. If you can, definitely check out this show. It is it is just adorable to look at. Again, very clever with how it presents its morals and how it ultimately gets across its messages most times.
Matt, what would your pick be?
So my choice is going to be what I consider the greatest cultural export that Australia has sent out in, I would argue, the last 20 years, if not the entirety of Australia's existence. Bluey. So I know, animation guy talking about a series like Bluey. It's actually not because of that. So I've mentioned before that I have a pet rabbit. And whenever my rabbit is a little bit sick or upset at something, I've found that what I can do to help him is put on some Bluey, and he perks up instantly. He's very happy to watch that show, and it's something that we end up watching together. And it's just a really fun time, bonding moments for us, to the point where I've actually gotten him a Bluey Build-A-Bear and a little Bingo plushie, and I put them in sort of a makeshift burrow that he always ends up cuddling up with and treats them like a father. And just like a good daddy, he makes sure that he gives both of his kids plenty of attention. So it's a special connection with me because of how much it means to my rabbit and I.
That's a great pick right there again. You can see why Bluey became so successful just because, it's an international phenomenon now. And it deserves to be because it's such a well-made, really great show for its target audience. And really in general, in a way. Let's see, Shark, what would your pick be?
Well, my choice isn't really something from Australia. It is something where Australia is like a major setting, like a major theme. And the funny thing is that not many people know about it, and that's Team Fortress 2, because if you only play the game, you only play like the maps and all of that, you're honestly never going to guess that, oh, this place takes place mostly in Australia, or it's very inspired in Australia. But there's a supplemental comics and even some background lore stuff, and you learn the whole backstory, and oh boy, what's going on here? Because, Australia, in the world of Team Fortress 2, Australia is like the more advanced and more utopian place in the whole planet. all the men over there are strong, they have mustache, they are like the ultimate life form. And the major energy source comes from Australia, which is a rock called Australium and all of that. So yeah, basically everything that all your weapons, all the stuff you're seeing in the game, it's caused thanks to Australia. In fact, one of the characters, the sniper, was raised in Australia. He has the accent and all of that. But then you read the comics and you eventually find something really funny about him. I won't spoil, but trust me, it's hilarious. Your boss, Sexton Hale, it's Australian and he's like the most manly person you'll ever see, the strongest character you'll ever meet and all of that. He's your boss, he's the one gives you the weapons, he's the one that eventually gives you the missions. Again, it's something you're not really going to know if you just play the game normally. It's really something you have to go and search with the comics and other material that the franchise has.
That is a great, great choice right there. Again, you can easily see why it's so popular. Now it is time for the patent-pending Dragoness Scale for none other than Joanna. This is going to be a really interesting one because, yes, she doesn't talk, but with that being said, man, everything about her is so perfect. I'm sorry, I cannot give her anything less than a 10. I can't give her anything less than a 10 because she is just such a well-made, overall well-rounded character. It's just so impressive just how expressive and how much emotion they get out of her. Their facial expressions with Frank Welker's performance, with the amount of emotion and character and personality we get from her is great. Pretty much the only thing I would change is I would give her just a tiny little scene at the very end of the movie showing how she got away from McLeach, but otherwise, no, perfection. Absolute perfection. Perfect score. 10 out of 10. She cannot be improved. She has reached her final form. Let's see, Angron, what would you give her?
Same score, really. I do agree that she definitely needed more time. Building off of everything that you said, she also has such an interesting relationship with McLeach. Like, on the one hand, yeah, definitely Joker and Harley Quinn, as I've said many times before. This guy is quite the mess compared to her. Sometimes she gets her moments of ferocity as well. Yeah, we have two semi-equally dangerous beings here, and yet, at the end of the day, she remains the more, ironically, human of the bunch, despite being, a hungry lizard. A sassy lizard, too. So, yeah, at the end of the day, she absolutely gets a 10 out of 10 for me as well.
Let's see, Matt, what would you give her?
So, design-wise, 5 out of 5, no notes. It's 90s Disney animation. You don't get better than that. Normally, this would be like a prototypical giant monster style character that I talk about because there's no dialogue, you would think no personality, no nothing, just hungering lizard. But here's the thing, and this is why I love 90s Disney compared to modern Disney. They actually knew how to give personality to silent animal characters. Joanna has probably the biggest personality in this whole movie. She has incredible slapstick. She has wonderful reactions and animation for her. Her chase scenes are hilarious. She can be really intimidating when she wants to be. And just everything about her is so fantastic and really well done that she comes off as a fully fleshed out character rather than just an animal. So yeah, she's a 10.
She's just such a great, fully fleshed out character. It is so impressive. Let's see, Shark, what would you give her?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with the rest of you. Yes, I am curious of what could have been a scenario where they actually give her a voice, but even without that, yeah, the design of her is great, the animation is great, her expressions and her personality, they're amazing, and yeah, there's honestly nothing wrong, I can think. Maybe what you said, like, oh no, maybe show what happened after the climax of the movie, maybe she now lives in the wilderness or something like that, but no, other than that, yeah, she's pretty much a perfect character, a 10 out of 10 character as well.
Yep, so we have another perfect character, 10 out of 10, perfect train, so
Correct.
she gets added to the list, and it's easy to see why, because, man, she's just such a great, great character, and I'm glad that Once Upon a Studio, that short actually tipped us off so we could do an episode on her, because I'm so glad that we could. So, that's going to be it for this week. If you have any questions, or if you want to see what would happen if Duchess met Miss Bianca, you can feel free to email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us at Twitter at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Be sure to subscribe to the Fiery Discourse YouTube channel and subscribe to the playlist. Like and hit the bell icon. Leave a comment. Any all comments are appreciated. Next week, we'll be talking about the 2021 I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 Years and Maxed Out My Level episode. We went to a dragon's wedding to start our second ever Isekai month. We had such a fun time doing that last
Yeah.
May. We might as well start it up again. So,
Hell
that'll
yeah.
be it for this week. And until then, thank you all so much for listening and take care.
Peace out.
Later, y'all. Later, mate.
Adios. See you all next week.